Welcome, welcome, everybody. Namaste, namaste. We have with us in this particular deep dialogue the wonderful Sheila Gillette, who I have known for some considerable amount of time, and I am immensely honored by knowing Sheila. She is a remarkable channel of a group of disincarnate beings known as THEO, who are angelic in countenance, and I know that they will probably come through in great waves to clarify whatever we need clarifying. And it's an absolute joy to have Sheila here. Thank you for being here, my darling. It's just always so refreshing when you're sitting there.
Stewart, it's so nice to be with you again. I've always enjoyed our dialogues. I've always enjoyed our time together. And so when you ask, it's a yes. Because it's a gift I give myself. So
bless you. That cherishes me very considerably. So thank you. An emanation of unconditional love already. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you'll see, if you don't know Sheila, then you'll soon find out how remarkable she is. And indeed, the beings that speak through her have a tremendous amount to say about the great topics that are in the forefront of our consciousness at this time. And I'm not talking about world politics. I'm talking about those of us that are spiritual initiates, those that are really living the belief, faith, and trust of what it is to be an emanation of the divine, and how in our humanity we can engineer greater spiritual connection and greater spiritual integration. Spirituality really meaning a movement back into wholeness, so that we're living physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, and recognizing that the divine is a constant presence in our lives because we are sparks of the divine, and 90% stardust. So before we came on air, Sheila and I were talking about her latest work with THEO. And although the program is not fully released just yet, it will be in about a month's time. So we thought that we would actually give you some insights into the wonder of the art of relationship, which of course was your book that was just released. Am I correct?
Yes, and we've done an extended version because we had filmed a whole video series about the book, and it's all recorded and videoed. And when we did that, THEO took the information, the original information, and expanded it. We went from 7 hours to 12.
Wow.
So the book has been released, and it's expanded. It's an expanded version. So yes, it's that book and more.
Yeah. And so the expansion took place completely spontaneously.
It did, because this has been quite the project. We were wanting to make this a series with video, a book, audio book, meditations, which we did. But when we were filming, we learned after we had filmed that the film crew took it and they were editing, and one of the microphones didn't work or had a problem. So they said, we got to do it again. And I know you've done things like this. So we went, okay. So we all got together and we got the production going, and that's when THEO we never know, what THEO wants to do or say on our behalf. So we would get done one segment, there are 12, for an example, and I would come back from being with THEO, and everybody would be just sitting there in awe and going, we got to redo the book. Just because they just extended the information, because they do that knowing that we're ready to hear it and we can use it. So it was quite something, and it's really good, Stewart. it's one thing to pat myself on the back, but I'm not patting me on the back. I'm patting the information on the back. It's quite stunning and life-changing.
Mm-hmm. So do you feel that that Theo actually brought about the mechanical failure in the microphone?
I wouldn't put it past anything. We had professional sound people and camera people, and, they were embarrassed that they hadn't caught it at the time. So I think anything's quite possible, Stewart, when you're working with spirit.
Yeah. And so it's interesting because it illuminates the whole conviction of the expectations that we have about our creative projects, and how sometimes when something goes wrong and our expectations are fouled, it's actually the universe saying, no, we're taking you in another direction because we have more information for you. And what we need to do is get out of the way of ourselves and stop holding on to our controlling mechanisms. But it's got to be this way, and it's got to be perfect, it's got to be. And then automatically we begin to realize that there is a slipstream of energy that that's being created for us, that is bringing forth even greater wisdom. So everybody, you're hearing that?
Yes. Well, I have one more little story. When we did the meditations, we've been working with Barry Goldstein, who's a wonderful, you know him, a wonderful musician and composer. And we went into his studio the first time. We did 12 meditations for the 12 modules, but we've done 3 others with him that are each 30 minutes long. So we went into the studio to do it with him, and I was in the sound booth to do Theo for the meditation, and he was doing the music in another sound booth in his studio. And we had said to Theo, we were going to do 30-minute meditations, but I've never done it this way before. And it was kind of like, well, will they know 30 minutes? You know how you do. Well, the first meditation we did, it was beautiful. And I came back from doing Theo, and I can see Marcus and Barry in the other studio. They had, I could see them on screen, and they were just going, and then they came on the mic and said to me, well, you want to know what Theo did? They stopped the meditation at 29 minutes and 98 seconds or 69 seconds or whatever it was. But it was just like a few seconds short of 30 minutes. And they were both just blown away. It was like, to your point, what worry about it? They know what they want for sure.
Yeah. And so there's a point in relation to all of those people that are concerned about AI. Does AI have a consciousness that is going to interfere with our own consciousness? Well, actually, there is another consciousness, which we are all part of, which is infinitely greater in terms of its capacity, its infinite potential. But at the same time, how we're beginning to see that it's organized through a degree of divine perspectives, and that's all about the greatest good. And right at the very heart of it is the stabilization and the execution of unconditional love. And I know that the whole of your thesis in Art of Relationship, and particularly moving into the first section, which is all about soul integration, I think that's what you were saying Theo has been calling it. But one of the great elements of the work is how we can move into the ecstasy of unconditional love and use it as a powerful healing agent, and not just simply as a super objective to work towards, but a powerful substance that can actually become a healing unguent for the whole of our lives. Could you perhaps touch into what you believe what Theo believes unconditional love to be?
They say it's not a feeling, it's a state of being. And it's soul-centeredness. It's feeling comfortable in our skins, and in our body and in our lives. It's a presence, and it's non-reactivity to life emotionally. It's responsiveness to life, a sense of peace. Everybody wants happiness. You say, what would you like? I want to be happy. I want it, but happiness is relative. It's relative to events, things, people, whatever we equate it to. But unconditional love is that state of being peace, that solid state inside of ourselves. And it's from the inside out. It's not expecting it from the outside. We get that from the outside, from others who have that state of being in themselves. And we're noticing that we can have relationships that are unconditional loving. I know we've heard that all of our lives, unconditional, but we never knew what it was. I didn't until Theo started the teaching and working with people with the soul integrational process. And that's been over decades that they've been doing that.
So I'm moving through a position of coherence with all that you're saying because of the teachings, because of the experientials that are coming through the work that I'm doing with the Angels of Atlantis, increasingly so over the last 3 years. And of course, on the forefront of everybody's conversation is fifth dimensionality. And because it seems to me through all of the interaction that I've had with people that there are subtle mistakes being made. Not that that's wrong, it's just a mistake in relation to the fact that people are thinking it's a location and thinking that it's a time zone. And of course, we know that it moves beyond weight, space, and time into something that they gave me, which is not a location, but a lovation. But it's all about lovation. It's all about love. And so it seems to me that the supreme state that you're talking about, which is the experience, is quantifiably the same, do you see, is what they're actually hinting at. I wonder how we get there now. I know that you've produced a series of divine meditations. Perhaps you could just enumerate for us what you feel the best techniques are to enter into the experience of unconditionality.
To do the soul integrated process. And we have a 12-week course called Thrive. That's a foundational course of soul integration. We teach people to love themselves in that. And it's really the foundation of Theo's work. And it actually, interestingly enough, it starts September 1st. So if people are interested, they could go to our website and look at that and see what it's about. But also the soul integration, the art of unconditional love, discover the magic of unconditional love. And the magic really is being soul-centered, feeling comfortable in our skin, no matter what's going on in our lives. We all have challenge in our lives. It's just the curriculum of life. It doesn't have to define us. It's how we meet it that changes. And when you are soul-centered, you respond to life rather than react. It's. I tell people, I know exactly the moment in time when I had a challenge come to me, and it was a challenge that I would have very much reacted to. And I realized that I wasn't reactive. I just had the feeling and confidence of, I can do this. I can manage this. And it was like going through an invisible barrier and going, I'm different. It was so palpable and experiential in the sense of, rather than being emotionally reactive and fearful and all the things we do as humans, I didn't do, which I recognized before I would have. That would have been what I would have done, like most of us. But I wasn't doing that anymore. And it felt good. It felt really good.
And so you stayed within the process that you're describing as soul integration. You were completely integrated, as opposed to becoming disintegrated by just being fed by the stimuli of the challenge on the outside.
Yes.
You chose to change your response. Are there keys that you use to remind yourself in the moment where, for example, so many of these reactive situations, as we know, they come very quickly in our lives, and it could be that we're caught in a traffic jam and suddenly somebody cuts across us, and there is the manifestation of what we're calling road rage, for example, of how we can shift the tenor of what that emotional behavior is all about, so we stop reaction.
Well, typically the parts of ourselves that are reacting isn't the adult. It's these little younger parts of ourselves that hold a belief that we're not safe in these situations for whatever reason. And so the emotional reactors are these little fragmented aspects of us that react. So doing the integrated process, you learn who they are, what age they are. Theo calls them the little orphans. And if you don't like that word, you can just call them aspects. But you know them, they're part of you. So you can, in an instant, just say, we're doing this together. I love you. I will not abandon you. And it's amazing the kind of peace that will come over you. Just they're parts of ourselves that want to be seen and heard and not abandoned.
Beautiful. And so in the moment, behaviorally, when the stimuli appears and we're about to launch into the reactive behaviors, is there a mechanism that one can use to automatically cease the reaction and move into response?
I would say, firstly, to take a deep breath, a real deep breath, and exhale completely, just to calm the self down. And then just on the inner, ask, who's uncomfortable inside of me? Who are you? And then you become familiar with that part of self in that instant.
Beautiful. So there's actually a freezing in time, isn't there? That time ceases to exist. And as a result of that, I mean, one of the things that I'm constantly being nudged towards by the angels of Atlantis is detach, feel stillness, observe. And that's what I believe one of the reasons why we're priming ourselves through meditation, that we're changing the whole of our neurological process through meditation. We engage in the exquisite nature of what stillness actually is, because we know that the divine lives in stillness, and doesn't actually move into the splintered nature of the way that we regard duality, so that we get caught up in reaction. And measure the fear or the despondency or the abandonment of the inner child. So in that moment, it's a question of arresting time, feeling ourselves to be the magicians of time, of detaching and really asking the questions that you've just asked. And are there particular skills within the meditation, the field of meditation, that Theo is moving you to teach, that also envelop or advance that moment of reactivity?
Yes. In fact, Theo's done a meditation, a soul integration meditation that people can use. It's also on our website, but it's very profound in its training process if we use it. Yes, we have many, many meditations. And Theo, they're very specific. They're word specific. Theo uses words very targeted to us when they do the guided meditations for whatever the meditation is about. If it's a manifestation meditation, a soul integration meditation, they have one on joy, and and they're very specific. We have ultimate health, And when I was in the healing, we talked about my surgery. I had a hip replaced. I'm bionic now. And I used the meditations for healing. And we had a chakra meditation and the ultimate balance one, ultimate health, that I used in my healing process.
Yeah.
They work.
Yeah. Yeah, and for those of you who are just thinking, oh, Sheila had an operation. So, wear and tear mechanically through her hip, not through excessive trauma, but actually wear and tear because she's a lady of some years and looking very beautiful, as I may say. But she decided that she would go in for the operation. And really what Sheila's talking about is the fact that she met what could have been an ordeal, the physiological ordeal of having her hip surgerized. She moved into the whole thing through a conscious interaction with her hip, and then into post-operative, the profound healing. This is what you're referring to, isn't it? As a result, it was speedy, accelerated healing because of that integrative approach. I love the fact that Theo is speaking about soul integration, because the word integration is such an exquisite art of how to become integrated. And it was certainly something that preoccupied us going way back in our history in the Renaissance periods, because they were obviously, Renaissance being revolution or change, rather like the Renaissance that we're going through at the moment, which we can't really call, because it's really a retrospective evaluation of what's taken place. But of course, when we're going through a period of challenge, there's a lot being sorted out. And one of the aspects of the ancient behaviors was to recognize that integration was the core. And that to integrate, what we needed to do was to stabilize and therefore balance the four integers of our being, meaning physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, which they knew represented earth, water, air, and fire, the four major elements within our body. Or, moving into the world of science, of dealing with carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen, the four building blocks of creation. And that if we were able to see where our dysfunctionality or where our inoperability were on whatever level of physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, and then move towards the greater supreme truth, the ultimate that you were talking about, that we bring the integers into integration. And when we are integrated, we resonate integrity. Mm-hmm. So they worked on it, and they worked on it through a system of devotion, pietas, veritas, truth, and gravitas, get grounded. So there's another way of talking about what we were saying about when you're in a moment of stress, detach, feel stillness, observe. That doesn't mean to say you take your hands off the wheel of the car. You actually, instead of getting caught up in the road rage, you take a little detour, if it's possible, in your car, stop the car, switch off the ignition, breathe deeply, as Sheila was saying, and become calm. And automatically we move into that transcendental space. It's not even a space. It's beyond that. It's a vibrational experience of being assisted by the divine. Because the unconditional love that you're speaking about and that Theo is guiding you through is that experience that is right at the core of the supreme nature of what it is to be a spiritual being, have a human experience.
Well, and you're speaking to what Theo talks of, God. When they're asked who is God, they say it's the solid state of unconditional love.
Yeah.
So that's what we're achieving inwardly, is the recognizing the God in us.
Yes.
And that soul-centeredness. I know we were talking earlier, Stewart, about the chaos in the world. We're all experiencing it. And asked about who the leaders of the world would be. And they said not the politicians. It would be the arts and the sciences that would bring us all together, because they're collaborative. And we are collaborative species, not competitive, even though in sports we compete and all of that. But in the real stuff, we're better together than we are apart. Not that sports aren't the real stuff. I mean, we all enjoy things like that, and we enjoy different things, but in life, life's real stuff, the life challenges, that we can't think of all the answers. It's good to have another voice. It's good to have a group together to bring their genius, their magnificence together to create solutions. And I think we're beginning to see that. But I know in the chaos, it feels as if it's unending. But this too will end. And Theo's, as you know, we've known each other for a number of years. And Theo spoke about this in my first book called The Fifth Dimension. This time that we're experiencing, they spoke of. And so I'm a huge optimist about the changes that are happening now. We just need to keep ourselves in that centered spot and let that radiate out from us. Because love does. You know, often Theo said, somebody says, how do I handle this? And they say, first ask, what would love do? And you know, it makes a difference.
And as you speak, I feel that there are extraordinary energies that are emerging from the centrifugal force, as it were, of what we're talking about, of what you're speaking about. And I'm reminded that we're actually meeting in a very powerful window of opportunity on our planet, which we know is an annual affair called the Lionsgate Portal. But it was very, very specific for this year because of a number of collaborative, so to speak, to use your word, a number of collaborative astrological configurations that are surrounding the emergence of our spiritual star, Sirius, that is above the Great Pyramid of Giza, or the Plateau of Giza, which is bringing about the essence and the inspiration of rebirth and transcendence. So I feel all of these wonderful energies that are exuding through the nature of what you're sharing with us. And I'd love to speak to that because you've brought in one of the most intangible but most significant aspects of the transcendence that we're moving through, or to use the phrase that I was given just a moment ago, that sport originally in its classical form was a pursuit of excellence rather than what we see it to be today, which is competing with one another for foolish, egoic considerations. So you moved into the mentioning of the word divine. And it seems to me that the vocabulary that surrounds and is in essence what the divine is missing from our vocabulary today, that we need to start moving into what, because words anchor states, of what words such as reverence and veneration and jubilation and glorification, those elements of the divine that is that ultimate experience of excellence, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. But we need to, we really need to move into the usage of what these superlatives are all about, because as a result of that, we're informing the whole of our beings so that we elevate, we levitate into love, rising to love rather than falling in love. I find that interesting that we use that tragedy when we say that we've met somebody is very significant. I've fallen in love rather than I'm rising to love. Because as we know, relationships are not about what we capture and hold in other, they're all about what comes up within self. So that is another aspect of integration that you're nudging us towards. And so we see a way of being able to alter the state of reactivity, and that reaction is really just acting something that we've always done before. And it's always filled through a shock or a challenge or a despair or a lack of self-love, and therefore a lack of unconditional love for self and for other. And that if we move into response, we're moving into these slipstreams of energy that lift us up. So if we were to ascend right now in our Merkaba, in our space vehicles, and we were to cluster around the absolute hub of Theo's exquisite intelligence, I wonder what Theo would say about our meeting and explaining to everybody, if they wish to be explained to, about the substance of integration and unconditional love. Is there anything that Theo could offer?
Oh, I'm sure they would. Yes. Yes. The thing about it, Stewart, is it's really simple. And our intelligence, our intellect, wants to make things confusing, complex. How often do we hear people say it's just things are too complex to explain, or no, they aren't. Love is really simple. The unconditional love is really simple. It's how we get there that we get confused in because of our belief systems, our old patterns of thought, how we think about ourselves. And that's what the integration process is about, is changing those beliefs. Events, challenges, circumstances that you either adopted the belief or created the belief about yourself that's untrue. Those won't change. That's our history. That's our experience. But how we perceive it can change. Our belief about it can change. And we can look for the gifts and blessings of that challenge rather than feeling victimized by it.
Beautiful, 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 beautiful. And so as we ascend into this experience, as beautiful as it may be, how can we make it consistent?
It's a moment-to-moment process. Notice what you're noticing about, who's the noticer? We have one. I believe it's our higher self, the one that's seeing us say something and going, why am I sitting there? Why am I doing that? The noticer is always noticing. So what are you noticing? And that's when we can begin to understand where we've been coming from. And with those revelations, we can change. Because it's not outside of us, it's inside of us. And, it's an inside out job. And people are seeking that unconditional love. What I would say, we have to become it, not seek it. And if we're seeking that in our lives from others, we have to be it to have it gravitate to us. And I've seen that in my own life, and I've witnessed it in others. And like I said, I'd heard unconditional love ad nauseum in my life, as we all have. But it was like, what is that? Once you start doing the process inside yourself and start becoming it, then you understand. I know when I married Marcus, my husband, I got to see what unconditional love was from me. The toothpaste cap left off. Simple stuff like that was like, craziness. I didn't care because he was more important to me than that. And when you start realizing that the person's more important than the thing, whatever frustrates you, and it's the little things, you get through the big things, you navigate those, but it's the little annoyances that we all have with each other. When they start not to matter because the person is more important, that's unconditional love. And when I realized that, it was like, now I know what it means. knows how to feel that about another. So it's just, to me, when we start that self-realization is when we start getting the knowing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, again, it's about really living in a state of presence, isn't it? Of living in the holy instant and recognizing in that moment when the stuff comes up, whatever the stuff is, which is a reactional force, that really all we're trying to do is to control the outer force because we're feeling uneasy within. So if we can detach from stillness and observe, and then go into really conjuring what a state of unconditionality is all about. So unconditional love is really loving for the sake of love, isn't it? Rather than loving for the sake of being loved.
Yes, oftentimes people, Theo will say to somebody when they're talking to them about boundaries. One of the things they said that I think is so profound is, are you doing it out of love or to be loved? When we're doing any action, because there's the crux of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Going from, and really that's relationships out of need rather than preference.
Yeah.
And they say that the new paradigm of relationship now is preferential, not needy. Because we can all take care of ourselves. I don't need Marcus to take care of me. I can do that financially. I can cook. I can, in the past, women had no authority in my lifetime to buy their own house or car or any of that. Well, now that's gone. Everybody has the authority to do whatever they need to do in life. So it's a whole different life now when that you don't need each other for these different things that in the past, in the third dimensional experience, was the way of relationship. You needed to procreate to have workers on the farm. There was all of these things as we've evolved. And now we can have relationships preferentially than out of the neediness of the past.
And of course, that's also in response to the great healings that are taking place within ancestral lines at this time, isn't it? There's always a choice of preference rather than the choice of subduing self or contracting self to just allow the misaligned behaviors to continue, the control dramas to continue, that we find a way of being able to move into unconditional love and express what we need to express about the situation as we perceive it, knowing full well that it's only our perception. Because there are so many people that come to me who are still caught within the contraction of what a relationship is all about, not knowing how they can actually expand beyond it into further choices that are more refined choices in the way that you're speaking about it. And so obviously for ourselves, there's a great deal of compassion that we feel in response to that, but also how we would like to urge people into a new form of perceptual engineering where they can reorganize the behaviors and therefore move into something much more freeing.
That's where the integrational process is so powerful. That's the how-to. Really, it is the how-to for us. When Theo brought that through years, 5 decades ago, I've been a student of it all my life. And it's the process that gets us to that state of unconditional love inside and that different way of being in relationship, in all relationships, primary relationships, family, work relationships. Our program speaks to all of those because we're different. And our relationship to our life, the pillars of our life, health, money, vocation, all the things that are important for a life well lived, that we can achieve by letting go of the resistance of the old way of thinking, that we're not enough, we're not worthy of that life. Because we are. And Theo talks about us as magnificent spiritual beings having a human experience. And they want us to know and believe that. They use that word a lot. And I know it off-puts some people, as you probably can imagine. Magnificent, I'm not magnificent, but they're encouraging us to have that self-realization, not from a conceited or self-centered or narcissistic personality viewpoint, but from the truth, because that's the truth of who we are. And that's what we're beginning in this time, this fifth dimensionary time, to understand. Theo talks about each and every one of us that have chosen to be incarnated now are here to be significant. Whatever that means in each individual life, its significance. You're here purposefully. What is purpose? Life itself. And then it's like this beautiful orchestra that has all these instruments, and that each one is integral in the playing of the musical composition. And without one of them, it could not be played. And that's how important we are. And you could use many metaphors or analogies to that, but I like that one because we're all familiar with music. Music connects us all. And to the beauty of a composition played by a fabulous orchestra, knowing that each instrument has its part within that beauty. So it makes sense to me when they use that analogy about us as a species. I thought it was a beautiful way for my understanding to grasp. Now I get it. And then you could see magnificence in that.
Yes. I see very clearly what you're saying. And again, I return, as you speak this, to the notion of integration, because we know that the individual parts of the orchestra are creating their own tonality, which through the music, through the magic of music, through the science of music, but through the magic of music, it creates harmony. And it's the harmony, the joined forces of integration that bring about the transcendent, because we feel when music is beautifully played, we are automatically taken into the field of harmony. So we feel the resonance of our beings being uplifted. So again, we go back into, as one very famous poet said, we're all in the gutter, but some of us are seeing the stars. Mm-hmm. So it's obviously a poetic metaphor that we're not literally in the gutter, but we're all in a lowly position from the confusion of what humanity can be about. But we all have the ability to be able to move into transcendental references. Mm-hmm. I noticed that you speak. I hear some very lovely dogs barking. That you speak a lot about the transcendent and the excellence, the magnificence. It takes us back to the use of superlatives in our vocabulary, and how it seems to me that for many of us, we're losing a feeling. We're feeling literacy. In other words, we're feeling something, but we don't know what to call it. We become confused. And so we start using quantitative words like I'm stuck, it's thick, I feel like concrete, etc., as opposed to going into, well, actually, I'm feeling alone and I'm feeling frightened and I'm feeling abandoned, which seem to me to be, from a feeling basis, much more legitimate or much more honest, should we say. How does Theo teach this process back into the finer degrees of integration so that we feel ourselves in the upliftment of these superlative energies that move us into an experience of magnificence?
It's all about love. It's the adult self. And it's much like inner child work, but it goes beyond that into our dimensionality. But we lob those little parts of ourselves forward into time. They're frozen in that moment of challenge, whatever they went through. They're frozen there. They're stuck there and reactive from whatever was going on. So the adult of us connecting and becoming the best parent for them by loving them forward and asking them to come forward, and understanding them and changing the belief you are worthy, being the best nurturer. And we call it bringing them home, but it's not a physical place. It's bringing them into our heart, which is the seat of the soul. Doesn't matter where we live, but that's part of the process as well. And it's that stuckness you talk about, feeling stuck, afraid, abandoned, whatever it is, that's that little part of self that's feeling that, because they're frozen in that moment. So of course they're stuck. But we can unstuck them. We can defrost them out of that moment and bring them into the present. And know it's like they're part of us. And they've protected us. And they've allowed us to become who we are today. And that's courageous. So we love them for that. We let them know how courageous they are for being so strong to survive whatever that moment was. And so we give them that nurturing, that love, that unconditional love. Then instead of being reactive, they start becoming responsive. But if reaction happens, because that's part of us, or they're part of us, what they're really saying to us when we have made that connection is, I'm scared. I can't do this alone. Do you hear me? And it's amazing and it just takes an instant. It takes longer to talk about it than it does to the whole experience. But all you can say, I'm here. I hear you. We're doing this together. You're not alone. It's amazing what you feel when you do that. It's like taking that deep breath that calms everything down.
Beautiful. As you look forward into the future, you were saying just now how optimistic you are. And so I'm maybe this is an inaccurate assumption, but I feel that hope is a huge aspect of that aspiration that you have. And as you look into the world, you've already mentioned that as we move into the collaborative and we move into the creation of the brave new world that we know is going to be right at the very core, a meeting of unconditional love, a celebration of unconditional love, and a co-creative movement towards refined states of unconditional love because of the nature of the way that time reveals to us. Linear time reveals today. As you look into the inspiration that we gain through leadership, if you were to define a salvational quality within an individual that you see is moving to a state of enlightened leadership, what are the essential qualities that you feel will be necessary for them to embody, to be that inspirational force?
Well, they themselves must be integrated. So there's a sense of presence that you would feel from somebody, confidence, not false confidence that we see in a lot of what we call leaders, which really aren't leaders now in the world, but a sense of confidence and caring and love, not fear. That's what I look for in a leader that holds themselves with that kind of confidence. And there are those who do. I've seen a few of them represented. It's interesting to what Theo talks about right now. It's drama and theatrics. And you probably see that too, coming from the theater yourself, seeing all of this drama play out with the leaders in the world. And that's not sustainable. It used to be. But everything's up to the surface. Everything's known. In fact, the leader of my country tells you exactly what he's doing. And everybody, oh, no, he doesn't mean that. Oh, yeah, he does. I mean, it's like if you watch it over a period of time, it's, nothing's left to the imagination, really. And the weakness in the individuals in the sense of their frailties. And as we were talking before about the neediness in them. You don't want a leader that's needy in that way, because they can be manipulated by those who can see it. And you want the strength, the inner strength of the individual. And we've had some in the world that we can admire. You and I have witnessed that over time. The younger people haven't. I don't think they've been able to see anybody in their current lives that exhibit that. But you and I have been fortunate enough to know what that looks like.
Yeah. And of course, we also know rationally that one of the reasons why this is taking place is because we're all being encouraged towards our own sovereignty, so that we become the leaders of the future. And, as we move towards a completion of our conversation, that for all of the parents that are out there, all of the grandparents that are out there, that you're the leaders leading the younger ones, leading the next generation. And so what are the qualities of your behavior? Are you reactive or are you responsive? Are you living and encouraging the entire family into a state of present unconditional love? Or are you all bickering with one another? What's taking place? And, I always remember at lunch or dinner, my mother saying, who's been dead for many, many years, but saying, we're not going to talk religion or politics at this table. We're going to talk about what adventure life is. So where's your adventure? What have you done today that's been unusual?
I love that. As you're speaking, and my thought just ran right out of my mind. It'll come back. It won't be gone long. But thinking about parents, oh yes, Theo says, heal the parents, the children will be just fine. And that when they speak about it, they're speaking about the integration process. We do that. We exhibit that in our lives to our children. They become it as well. Yeah, and they said the process will heal the past, all of those generational patternings that have gone on before will get healed, and our children will not need to act them out in the future. So we, as parents and grandparents, doing the inner work to come into that state of unconditional love, our children can exhibit that in their lives and move into this new way of being, this new pattern of being in the fifth dimension. That's what we're here to do. Yeah.
And of course, all of your facilitative courses are packed full of this wonderful classical information that is made so original, as we've seen through your description of the vital tenets, but also the practice of how we live them and the experience thereof. So as we finalize, as we complete for today, perhaps you can just remind us of where everybody listening can find the exquisite nature of your work. They need to go to the website, which is
AskTheo.com. And particularly if they're interested in the soul integrational process, to look at the Thrive program, because that's the foundation of our teaching, and that they could become a part of if they're interested. But so many things on the website. We have lots of programs and lots of opportunities there. If people are interested, AskTheo.com.
Fantastic. And so we'll make sure that those particular superlatives are shown on the the vital details beneath this video. So Sheila and Theo, who is illumined in the background, above you, around you, within you, etc. Thank you so much for coming forth to speak with us today. It's been absolutely wonderful, and you're a lady of such style, so it's so cherishing and nourishing to feel that you are within your range of capability sharing with us these exquisite details. So thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Stewart. I always love our conversations, and I'll look forward to us doing it again sometime.
Absolutely, absolutely. And much will be revealed, I know. So everybody listening in, there's the wonderful Sheila Gillette, as you see from the screen. Please do go to AskTheo.com. We'll make sure, there we are. We'll make sure that the information will be below. And thank you for listening in. I know that Sheila appreciates you all coming and tuning into the wonderful nature of the anticipations of what Theo may say. So thank you so much, Ryan. Thank you. Thank you. Sheila, do stay where you are for a moment.
I will. Thanks.